Hey everybody, let's build an awesome vivarium for a gargoyle gecko.
Gargoyle geckos are a beautiful, underrated little gecko from New Caledonia, which is an island in the South Pacific Ocean near Australia. They're very similar to the super popular crested geckos with some key differences. They've got different colors and patterns, they're less likely to drop their tail, and they might not always be as comfortable being handled. This week, we're building a planted vivarium for a client's pet gargoyle gecko.
This tank is a little different than some of our usual tanks. Normally, we make a diorama scape covering 3 walls with hardscape to frame the tank fully with branches and plants. In this case, the client wanted to be able to look in from 2 sides, so we're only covering the back and 1 wall. Normally, we want the tank to look very good from 1 viewing angle. With a tank like this, we're worrying about 2. We're going to have to think very carefully about maximizing the space for the animal while avoiding excess clutter.
To that end, we want to create a series of platforms that the gargoyle gecko can use, doubling the footprint of the tank. We started out by placing some foam scraps on the bottom as temporary supports, then positioned our first piece of driftwood, which we siliconed in place using black aquarium-safe silicone. If you're curious what materials that we're using throughout this build, you can find everything linked in the description. Next, we made another platform, this one about 2/3 up the tank. We taped it in place temporarily with painter's tape while the silicone cures. We're not worrying too much about gaps between the wood and the glass right now, because we're going to spray foam in all of these later to make the platforms as large and as robust as possible.
With a couple more pieces in place, we're ready for our first round of spray foam. This will lock everything in place so we can remove our supports and keep going. We're going to fill in all the gaps and make these platforms something the gecko can really hang out on. Next, we are going to attach some pieces of decor to the background with hot glue. This will include cork bark flats as well as loose scraps of the textured foam that comes with most Exo Terra tanks. These can be a good way to fill in the textures on your background without spending extra money on spray foam. With those in place, we spray foamed all the gaps in and fully covered our 2 walls.
We let that cure for 24 hours, then carved away at the foam with an X-Acto knife. We use a combination of slicing and peeling to give the foam a more natural look and texture. And presto, it's looking like some nice lava rock. We're ready for our favorite step, the silicone.
Just kidding, because this is a tank with 1 wall uncovered, we want to be extra careful about getting the silicone on it. So let's tape it off first to be extra safe. Okay, now it's time for our favorite step. We liberally apply our silicone to all the exposed foam, then spread it around and work it into every nook and cranny with our hands. Make sure to wear gloves. Next, we took some cocoa fiber and patted it onto the silicone. Now finally, this is looking like a nice place to live. We've got several large platforms and the sticks all droop downwards like the roots of a dead tree.
Now we can add the substrate. We're using cocoa fiber, sphagnum moss, and aquasoil mixed together. With this mix, for terrestrial animals like gargoyle geckos, we usually find we don't need a drainage layer the way you might with a super wet amphibian tank. We still put down some foam scraps below the soil to give us some elevation and to keep the majority of the soil nice and dry. Now we can plant.
We are using a variety of terrestrial plants for this build, most of which you can find at your local garden center. This includes ferns, more ferns, Syngoniums, more ferns, Pothos, and plenty of sheet moss. We planted our plants across the substrate with larger ones like the Pothos in the back, ready to spread up the walls. We sprinkled some of the smaller plants along the platforms. We spread the moss evenly throughout and across the walls, pinning it in place with toothpicks when necessary.
Then we painted the outside of the tank on our 2 covered walls with black Plasti-Dip. This will stop light from coming in, but it can still be peeled off later. We do 3 even coats with 30 minutes of drying time in between. We didn't film that, so here's some footage from another tank. Are you guys ready for the grand reveal?
Here it is, a lush green vivarium with plenty of hiding spots and climbing space. It'll take some time for the plants and moss to really grow in, but soon this enclosure will be a mini jungle for the gecko to thrive in.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this build, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more awesome vivariums. Have any questions or suggestions? Drop them down in the comments. And if you'd like to commission a custom tank, feel free to shoot us an email. Bye, see you in the next video.